which is good.
Yeah. And at any point, if you want to say something again or repeat it or get up and take a break.
Okay, I understand,
Yeah.
So let's start.
Okay. And we'll start with, if you could just spell your first and last name.
Okay, my name is Irene Epstein, and it's spelled IRENEEPSTEIN.
Okay, great. And today is?
Today is the 21st.
February 21st, 2019, and we are filming Irene Epstein's testimony for the Holocaust Center, Seattle, the Holocaust Center of Humanity. And I'm Taylor Krause, and just checking the audio levels one more time. So one of the things that we like to do is kind of start at the beginning. If you want to just share who you are and where you were born and when you were born, and what it was like growing up and wherever you grew up. Yeah.
Well, my name is Irene Epstein, and I was born in Warsaw in 1924. So this January, I was 95 years old, which amazes me that I survived to this point. My mother and father and my brother, we all lived in a very nice home in Warsaw. I had a very happy childhood. I had an English nanny when I was little, and I spoke English since I was a little girl. I went to a Catholic school because it was a private and very good school, and we had a few Jewish girls there, but I always felt anti-Semitism in Poland. My brother, who was 4 years younger, went to a Jewish gymnasium because at that time we started hearing about Hitler, and my parents, who were not religious at all, but they felt Jewish, decided that it was a good idea to bring my brother knowing about being a Jew. I had a very good childhood. I had tennis lessons, I had swimming lessons, I skied, I skated, I had wonderful friends, but mostly Jewish friends. Even though I went to school with a lot of Catholic girls, they did not mix very well with us. We always felt that we were somehow strangers. I remember where our president, Pilsudski, Joseph Pilsudski, died, and he was very good to the Jews. So I was very upset when he died, and I wrote a poem. And I remember that poem was read at the big assembly they had in his memory, but I was not allowed to read it. It was read by somebody else. The summer of '39, we always went away for the summer to some resort, and we spent it in Druskieniki, which was on the Lithuanian border of Poland. I never forget the wonderful time we had. My brother, my mother, my dad would come and visit because he could not get away for the whole time. And it was like a magic summer. Unfortunately, that was the last freedom and good time that we had. I want to tell you that my mother was an attorney, which was, she finished law, passed it for a woman, and especially a Jewish woman. It was very unusual in those days. And my dad was also into college, and he was very good in finished business, but he was a very good mathematician, and they were both professional people. My dad called my mom and said, "Get back to Warsaw, the war will start, and you won't be able to come back. Just pack and come back." That was at the end of August. And we got on the train. The trains were already packed with people. We got back to Warsaw. My grandparents were visiting us from Palestine, my mother's parents. They were spending their winters in Palestine and their summers in Poland. They had a house that they built in Palestine. And they were able to leave on the last boat because they had their visa and their passport, and they left for Palestine, and they were able to survive the war in Palestine. Their 4 children, my mother and her 3 brothers, Benjamin, Jacob, and Joseph. They all stayed in Poland, and they couldn't get out. None of us could get out. When the Germans came, they requisitioned our beautiful house, and we had to move. And they said, "You cannot take anything. If you take anything, you will be erschossen. You will be shot." So we moved with nothing. Everything had to be left. And we moved with my mother's brother, who still had his apartment, and his wife and his son. Shortly after that, the Germans started building a wall around the ghetto. They put everybody in, all the Jews had to go in the ghetto, the Warsaw Ghetto. And the Jewish men actually were building the wall. The wall was almost 12 feet high with barbed wire on top. And I think there were 1,800 streets in Warsaw, and there were 73 encompassed the ghetto. So we were all crowded, and pretty soon there were rations. We had no food. We had no sanitation, and it was awful. We were hungry and dirty, and the worst part was that Germans started to have the roundups. They would round out the people and send them supposedly on labor, but really they started sending them to the camps where they were, which were the death camps, the gas camps. And those were happening daily.
I'm going to actually just take this off. Before we talk about...
What?
Before we talk about
Yeah.
moving into the ghetto, do you want to spend a little bit more time and talk about what it was like growing up in Warsaw? You said you had a good childhood, and I wonder if, as part of this, you would like to kind of talk about your friends and relatives and what life used to be like as you remember it. If there are memories that come up about the good times before that.
Yes.
And always, you can always look at me and not the camera. That way.
Okay.
Yeah. So did you have your relationships and friendships and life in Warsaw?
Yes. The Jewish girls were very, very close. And some of my friends who survived, there were 4 of us actually that I know that who survived. And the 3 that I was closest to ended up in Palestine, which became Israel then. We played, we used to walk each other we walked to school together, and then we talked and said, I will see you home. No, then I will see you home. And we walked back and forth and talked, and just had a wonderful time. We played bridge in those days because our parents played bridge. So we learned how to play bridge. We had a bridge group. We took foreign languages together. Like I practiced my English with a private teacher. One of my friends was taking the lessons with me. We belonged to YWCA. We went swimming together. Just had a lot of activities. Birthday party. I remember my 15th birthday. My mother gave me a party. It's kind of a growing up with 6 of my best friends, and we put on the gramophone, and we danced with each other. No boys, just girls. We were all dressed up. Life was very, very good. There was a cafe, a very famous bakery, owned by a Gentile family, and their daughter was going to school with us. And we always used to have there for donuts and other goodies. It was a very, very well-known cafe. And one day it was her birthday, and there was a little note that was being passed, and we got invited to that party, but there was a note passed. So do we have to have the Jewish girls too? And somebody picked up that note, so we felt like they really didn't want us there, but the parents, who had so many Jewish customers, felt that we should be invited. But that was the attitude. We always felt the anti-Semitism in the school. I did well in humanities, in writing, and I remember we had a field trip to Krakow, which is a very famous medieval city in Poland, and I went with the school. And after we came back, we had to write in our literature class, language class, about our trip. And when the teacher returned our essays, I was sick that day. And my friends called me and says, Irene, your teacher read your essay. They said that was the best one, and you should we should take example of your writing. So I was very, very flattered. I decided right there and then that I wanted to be a writer. And that's really funny because now my granddaughter wanted to be a writer, and both my granddaughters wanted to be writers. So it's I guess it's in the genes. But unfortunately, I really didn't write anything very much. And let's see, it was.
What was life like in Warsaw?
Nightlife?
Life like holidays and
Yeah, okay. My father had 3 sisters. One of his sisters lived in Warsaw. Her husband was a physician. And she actually put him through school giving piano lessons. And they usually had the Seder. They had a big house, and they always had the Seder for the family. So I remember that holiday very well. But actually, we were not religious, and I don't remember going to a synagogue or my mother going to a synagogue. I think my dad used to go, like on Yom Kippur, and on his father's yard side. My father's father emigrated to Palestine, where his daughter lived because she. My dad had three sisters. One lived in Palestine because she married a Zionist Russian engineer, and he settled in Palestine. One lived in Germany, and just before Hitler came, they moved to England and were able to take almost everything with them still, because it was before Hitler came to power. So one lived in England, and there was one sister who lived in Warsaw. And she was the one that I knew the best, of course, and she usually had the holidays. She had a little boy whose name is Jurek, and like my brother, and they were the same age, my brother and his cousin Jurek.
When you were going to school, you said you felt that they didn't quite see you the same, and the dance,
No.
they didn't quite see you the same. Do you remember a time when you didn't know that? You said your family wasn't religious, but did you always know you were a Jew?
Yes. Even though we were not religious, I knew I was Jewish. I was, very Jewish. And if I wouldn't know that, the Poles would have reminded me of it. There was, so we were, like in school, we were ostracized to a degree. And let's see.
What was that summer like when you said you went away for that beautiful summer? What did you guys do in that summer?
Okay, in that summer, there was a spa, a special spa where men and women could go. Men went on one side and women were on the other side, and they had all kinds of activities. And they had a big swimming pool, they had exercise, and the women could walk bikini. They had bikinis, or you can even walk nude because they were all women. And they had exercise, they had diet food, they had tennis, they had all kinds of activities. They were just great. We had, so we spent the day in the spa, and my brother was on the other side in the men's spa. And then we stayed in a beautiful villa that we rented for the summer. And in the evening, after about 4 o'clock, we would go home and had dinner at the villa. It was like a pension where you have also all meals included also. And then we used to go to the park, a special park that they had, and they had a band playing every single night. There was a band. So we used to go to the concert. And if there was time before that, I used to go play tennis and take tennis lessons. And it was just a wonderful time. And I had friends. I have got a couple of friends there one of my friends from school was there. So we did things together. And it's the first time that I kind of started to look at boys, and boys started to look at me. And so it was all in all, it was a wonderful, wonderful summer.
What were your relationships like with your mother, with your father? Do you want to talk about your relationships before?
Yes, my mother, I looked up to my mother. I thought my mother was the cleverest person in the world. I know when she belonged to she participated in the PTA in my school, and she every time she gave a speech, I always heard about it from my friends that my mother told me that your mother spoke, and you know how good she is. So my mother was very involved in my school as much as they allowed her, and I always looked up to her. And she gave me a lot of pointers, how to act, how to behave in a relationship with my friends. You know, if I have if I was miffed at somebody, you know, how to deal with that, you know. And she was very, very clever. She was always the best student in her class. And she had a friend who was also a very good student, and both of them were number one in school, and then they both went to law school, and her friend became a judge later on in life, but my mother didn't. My mother was helping the German refugees who came to Poland after Hitler came. She got involved in the resettling of the German Jewish refugees who came to Poland in fear of Hitler. So she was active in that. She didn't know that we didn't even imagine that this is going to happen to us too, that we're going to be refugees.
Do you want to talk more about growing up in Warsaw? Would you like to talk about that time when the walls were being built in the ghetto and move forward?
Well, all I can say is that I had a wonderful childhood, and the way and my upbringing served me my whole life, that I was loved and that I knew what was right and what was wrong. My upbringing that my parents gave me served me all my life. It still does. And then, well, I might as well.
Yeah.
What else can I say about?
Well, I mean, I think that's a gift that you have to hold on to. That period of time, that period of time of though things weren't perfect as you described. People
Every summer we would leave Warsaw and go to some resort, and that was a wonderful time. We swam, we played tennis. We had a wonderful time usually. My dad would stay in the city, but he would come like on the weekends, or if it was too far, every other weekend to stay with us. One year before Druskieniki, we went to Orłowo. It's the ocean on the Baltic Sea, and that's very near Gdansk, and German border. And we had a wonderful time there. I've never seen the sea, and I was so excited to see the water, because Warsaw has a big river, but it's nothing like the sea. One day I took a kayak and kayaked by myself all the way on, and I guess I must have crossed the German border unknowingly, I don't know, but everybody was looking for me. My mom and dad were frantic. and I got blisters on my hands from rowing. And then I came back, and he said, "How could you do that? You didn't tell us where you went." And I got really bawled out by my parents for doing that.
So you're always independent, it sounds like.
I was always very, yeah. That served me well in my life later. Yeah, I was taught not to be a clinging vine, but to be independent.
And you said that summer you started liking some boys, and
Yes.
did you have any special friends or anything, anybody that, girls or boys growing up?
Yes, I had, well, there was one street in Warsaw where we all walked. It was like a dating place. So all the girls walked, after school, we walked that street, and all the boys did, and you just, we were shy, but we laughed and said hello, and, you knew who you liked.
And your family sounds like they were very respected. Your mother was an attorney?
Yes.
And your father was through business school?
Yes.
What kind of work were they doing? And you said you had a beautiful home that you had to leave from. What was your home like? Where was it?
Well, it actually was big condo, because people, like, we lived down, in town. There weren't that many houses in town. They're mostly the apartment houses. But we had a big condo. There was a huge entry hall, and from as you enter to the left was my dad's office, although he had his office downtown, but that was, when he was home, that was his office. And then there was my bedroom and my brother's bedroom, and to the right was the dining room and the living room, and then my parents' bedroom was, big bedroom was there. Of the living room was my parents' bedroom, and then the hall, the entry, that was all around the entry hall, which was big, like a big area, and then in the other part of the house, leading from the entry hall, were two bathrooms, and a little room for the maid, and the kitchen. And we had two balconies. One was in the dining room that overlooked the street, and one was in the back that overlooked the backyard, the backyard, yeah.
Wow. So they came in and...
Yeah. So there was a big place. Very big.
And did you have, holidays at your home? You said sometimes they...
Oh, yeah. My mother, we had holidays. Sometimes we had the Seder, but mostly my aunt had the Seder. We didn't celebrate Christmas. And I had a Jewish friend who had a Christmas tree. So I came home and I said I wanted a Christmas tree. And my dad said, "No way, forget it." So I felt very bad. I wanted a Christmas tree. So because my Jewish girlfriend, she had a Christmas tree. But I didn't.
Was Christmas just considered like a Polish thing? It is...
A religious holiday, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, I was selected to Christmas. We had a Christmas play at school, and I was selected to be a knight that comes to the nativity scene and bows to the baby Jesus. The reason I was selected as a knight, because I guess we could afford to get me the costumes that was all gold and that was, or silver, and that was going to be a night. And my dad said, no, you're not going to be in the play. He wouldn't allow me to be in the play.
And at the time, how did you feel about that?
Oh, I cried because I wanted to be in the play. So finally, I said, I don't have to say anything. I'm just going to be there. It's not a speaking part. And my dad saw how much I wanted to be in the play. He said to me, but don't bow. But I was supposed to bow. He said, don't bow. So I remember that. But I was in the play. And because we sang all the carols, and when they had religion lessons, Bible lessons, the Gentiles, that we just... one year we had a rabbi come in and talk to us, but we didn't like it, but we were afraid, I think. We were afraid that they're going to laugh at us, or... And we weren't too kind to him, to the rabbi, because, if we went to that school, we were all very assimilated. Otherwise, we would probably go to the girls' Jewish gymnasium. In fact, when my brother started going to the Jewish gymnasium and learning how to write Hebrew, my parents wanted to transfer me. That was when Hitler was already raising his ugly head. My parents felt more Jewish than before even. And they wanted to transfer me, but I did not want to because I didn't know Hebrew, and I would have to start from the beginning. And so I leave my friends. So I decided I didn't want to do that.
So you were 15 years old, and your father was defending you against being in this sort of nativity scene. Hitler was raising his head. What did you understand about that moment in time, if you could? Obviously, even your family didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, I could not imagine that, that what was going on. What we would face. Even though there was anti-Semitism, I just could not ever. In fact, my mom was so smart, she didn't want to leave either. Maybe she did, but too late. Because my aunt and uncle in England and my dad's sisters kept writing to us, don't you think about leaving? Why don't you leave, But life was so good. Life actually was good, because we had everything. My dad was making was making money, and my mother was happy with her friends, and we just had such a, actually, good time in spite of everything within our own community. That it was hard to leave our beautiful home, and all the amenities that we had, the beautiful summer vacations and villas, and one time my dad took me on a business trip to Vienna. That was, of course, before Hitler annexed it. We were in, so I was so proud. I went with as my dad's companion to Vienna, and he took me to the what is called it, park, where they have the big Ferris wheel. There was the first Prater, I think it's called, and I went on that Ferris wheel, and they took me shopping. I remember he brought me a little pin, and as I turned around as we were leaving, I saw the shopkeeper who sold us the pin. There was a very nice store on the what is like a Fifth Avenue there. I forget the name of the street, Kupferdam, I think. And the sales girl stuck her tongue at us when we had our back turned, after we made the purchase, of course. Like, so.
And you knew what that was about, or you didn't know as a young
Well, I realized what it was about, but it was before Hitler annexed. And Austria was very anti-Semitic also. I connected anti-Semitism with Catholicism because Poland was all Catholic, and Vienna and Austria was pretty much Catholic. So I always thought the who persecuted us were the Catholics. And when I came to the United States, I could not believe that the Catholics were actually persecuted here or in England one time. I thought that. In fact, I remember when I was a little girl, I was going to school already, must have been in second, third grade. I found out that Jesus was Jewish, and I couldn't believe it. And I came home and I said, Mom, that's not true that Jesus was Jewish. And she says, yes. She says, well, how come they hate us? When I was little, I could not believe it. It was like, it was such a surprise to me.
And how did you sense that they hated you? In what ways were you feeling that?
Well, their attitude, they talked about Jews this, and talk like a Jew, you ask questions like a Jew, anything that was not complimentary was Jewish, Jews were cheap, Jews were this. They just felt it. It was, there's always exceptions to the rule. And maybe some, like the president, Joseph Pilsudski, he was not an anti-Semite. And when he was in power, things were much better for the Jews. But then when he died, that's when I wrote this poem about him. And that everybody thought it was so good. But I really felt it in my heart that he that he did so much.
So were you engaged with political issues at the time if you were
Not
writing
that,
about his...
No, it was just that I knew that he was a good guy, And maybe I heard the adults talk about him. Yeah.
Thank you for...
In fact, I met a Polish man here, and he was going to Poland on a visit. And I don't know how this came about, but I told him that one time I wrote this poem about Pilsudski, and he said, do you still have it? Well, I didn't have it, but by golly, I went home, and I remember the whole thing. So I wrote it down for him. And he loved it. So many years later, he took it with him. And he said, I cannot believe it, you wrote this poem.
Do you remember any of it still? Do you happen
Yeah.
to... Really?
Yeah, I do. Well, this just happened a couple of years ago. And in fact, he brought me some Polish candy. He said, this is for the poem. So I still remembered it. And when I talked about writing, I did write a story, and the story was actually about this boy that lived there. There was my neighbor, and I really liked him, but then he it turned out that he didn't like Jews. And I wrote the story, and I sent it to the Jewish newspaper. I think it was like for young people paper. And I won first prize, and the prize was the book Oliver Twist by Dickens. I still remember that.
Go figure. With they always say the Jewish trope of Fagin in Fagin's gang. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah. The anti-Semitic characterization of Fagin.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk more about childhood memories and relatives?
Well, I didn't know my paternal grandfather who went to Israel when I was a little girl, when I was like 2 or 3, to Palestine. And he was a very educated man. He read English. He was a linguist. And I have a facility for languages too, so it must be inherited. He translated Shakespeare into Polish. I don't know if it was published, but on his own he did that. He was a very educated and nice man. And he died in Palestine, and his grave is right in middle of Tel Aviv, in a little cemetery where they buried at that time writers and politicians and Zionists, and now it's closed. It's a very small cemetery. It's almost like a museum, and I'm very proud that he's there, and we keep up his grave. In fact, a cousin of mine on my father's side, she goes to Israel every year, and she attends to his grave. And on his grave, we also engraved, besides his name, my father's name, my brother's name, and his daughter's name, who passed. Everyone who was a Holocaust who didn't survive the Holocaust, and we don't know where their graves are. So we put their names with the grandfather's name. Yeah. And my maternal grandfather, who escaped Poland in the last minute in 1939, he and my grandma are also buried in Israel, in Holon. Now they don't bury anymore in Tel Aviv. That's the only cemetery that I know in Tel Aviv. So that's where that's what's called in Yiddish, the iches. You know what the word iches means? Honor. Yeah, that he's there, yeah.
So did you speak Yiddish as a child in
No,
addition to
my parents didn't speak Yiddish at all. I think my dad knew how to speak Yiddish, but he didn't speak Yiddish. So I grew up knowing no Yiddish at all, which actually, through the years of my surviving as a Gentile later, it helped me because I wasn't going to, speak in my dream or anything when I was sleeping with 100 other girls in a camp.
So you said that your grandfather left at the last moment, and you had to.
And they survived. And they survived the war in Palestine. And they had their house there. They built an apartment house. And I don't know if you know Tel Aviv, but he chose a lot, and now all the big hotels are across the street from our house. So he was very knowing very good real estate person. Actually, he had a men's factory when I was little in Warsaw, my grandfather. Men's shirts. And when the first war came, he was got a contract from the army. So he made a lot of money in his little factory, in men's shirts. And after the war, he closed it and he started buying real estate. And he owned a lot of real estate. And after the war, my mother went back to the government and she showed the documents, that we own this property. There was, I think, about 6 or 7 big apartment houses. And we never got anything for it. Not a penny was restored.
Including your own home.
That's right. Nothing. We didn't get any restitutions or anything from Poland.
Well, let's start from your home and when you heard you had to leave your home and eventually move to the ghetto. Could you talk a little bit about that and what you remember and let your mind, go
Well, the
into
ghetto. Well, okay, we were in the ghetto. And first of all, I told you that, but we couldn't leave it. We could have left maybe in 38 or 37 when my aunts were asking my father to leave, but we didn't leave because things were too good. Anyway, when we were in the ghetto, we lived with my aunt and uncle and their son. And in a small, their apartment, people were living like 20 people to a room or something. We were so compressed. So we were really pretty lucky that we were, that we just had the family there. But there were 8 of us. No, there were, yeah. And the worst part was they were calling, the Germans would come, the German soldiers, the Gestapo, and everybody out, and everybody had to go out into the courtyard, the courtyard, and then they would make a selection, right, left. One side was good, where the people were strong and younger, and one was for older people and children. My dad, I think, wasn't home that day, the one time that I remember, and my mother and the German soldier motioned my mother to one side and my brother and me to another side. And my mother knew that there was not a good side. And she stepped out. She dared to step out to the German soldier, and she said in German, "These are my Kinder, these are my children, they are coming with me." And I guess he was so stunned by her stepping out of line, and he just motioned us to her side. After it was over, all the neighbors got so mad at my mom. She said, "You endangered all of us by your nerve you had." But she saved our lives. That was my mother. She was amazing. And one day we had another one of those elections, and I guess my uncle tried to help someone, and they shot him right there in front of us. His wife, his son, his sister, and me, and he was shot. My uncle was wonderful. So there my mother lost her first brother. Her other brother escaped to Russia, and they sent him, they sent him to Siberia. He was sent to Siberia, and we never heard from him. And his wife and the children, 2 children, they were killed in the ghetto, in the gas camps. So more and more we had these selections, and sometimes the Germans would say, "You're going to work," but we got news what was going. Somehow we got news what was going on. So my mother decided that that the only way out was to escape the ghetto. And she bought, for a lot of money, false documents. She talked to a priest, and they had people who died, Gentiles who died, and who had their birth certificates, and their ages corresponded to my age, my brother's age, my dad's. And we got false passports, false birth certificates for all of us, and false documents. So my name was Anna Borowska, and there was belonged to a girl that was same age as I was at the time. And my brother had one. With this document, now she arranged for places to us to stay. With her false passport, she left the ghetto with a workforce, and then she just kind of escaped and went into the other part of Warsaw, talked to our former maid, and asked her if she would keep my brother, and they would pay for her to do that. And she agreed. She was married. And so my brother left, escaped with the help of my mother through the hole that they knew was in the wall. And he was there. One day my mother went to see him. Oh, she was working on finding a place for me. But one time she went to see him, and my brother wasn't there. It turned out that her husband told everybody, "We are keeping a Jewish child." The Germans came, called my brother out, and he said, "I'm not Jewish," but he was circumcised. And if you were circumcised, the Poles were not circumcised. And they took him away. And we didn't know what happened to him. When my dad found that out, my mother told us, he lost all will to live. He didn't want to live anymore. Then my mother said to me, "But you have to go. You have to go. They're going to kill you here. You stay." And I was afraid. Look what happened to my brother. I want to stay with Dad. He said, "No, you have to go. I have a place for you." And she found me a place with a Gentile couple. And they had a little baby. And I was supposed to be, my reason for being was being a nanny to the baby. They had a little apartment in Warsaw. And my mother practically dragged me out of there, out of the ghetto. She said, I didn't want to leave. She said, "You have to." And so I stayed with this couple. They didn't know that she was my mother. They thought she was a friend of my mother who was doing that because she was my mother's best friend. They didn't know she was Jewish. And I stayed with this couple, but my dad would not come out of the ghetto. And my mother, she had a place too. She was working for some family, doing like a cleaning lady or something, She did something for this couple where she was staying. So my mother and I were out of the ghetto, My brother was already gone. We didn't know where. And my dad stayed in the ghetto. After my brother was gone, he just didn't want to do anything. I stayed there with this couple, and one day I looked out the window and I saw this smoke. I said, "What is that?" She said, "The ghetto is burning." They had the uprising in the ghetto, and the ghetto was burned. And I saw it from my window, how the ghetto was burning. But another thing that happened that I didn't know till after the war, on the same street where I was staying, and I had a little baby that the couple had, and I was wheeling the stroller every morning, taking her for a walk, the baby. There was a place about a block away from me where there was like a greenhouse. And I didn't know anything. And after the war, I found out that underneath that greenhouse was a bunker. And in that bunker, there was 30 or 35 Jewish people hiding, and this Polish guy was taking care of it. And they slept all day, and at night they would they'd go out, but at night they ate and did whatever they had to do, and they stayed there. And my girlfriend, with whom I went to school, was hiding there. 2 days before they found that place, the Germans found the place, she left. She had a boyfriend, she and her boyfriend left the place. The Germans came and shot everybody, including the Polish guy who had the place. She wrote a little book, which I have, called The Hiding Place. But at the time, I didn't even know it. There was like a block away from me on the same street that I was hiding. There had over 30 people hiding under the greenhouse.
So when you left the ghetto, it was as if you never saw any of your friends or your relatives again. You were just living in almost like a different...
Yeah, different world. Never see anybody. Then one day, my people that I was staying with said, we are in the underground, and it's very dangerous for us here. We have to leave. And I said, what are we going to... wait a minute. One day my mother came and said to me, they are suspecting me that somebody's following me. Some Poles are following me. See, the Poles, if they said, I know a Jew who is hiding, they would get money for that. So they wanted extortion. It was blackmail, extortion. It's just some couple Poles are following me, and I know they're going to give me to the police. But here is the money that I have, hide it, and whatever happens, remember, your grandparents are in Israel, in Palestine, your aunt is in Palestine, your aunt in England. If you survive the war, that's where you go. You have the addresses. That's where you go. And I said, I don't want you to go. She said, no. She says, this is it. So she left, and then I didn't see her for a couple of weeks, so I knew, because she used to come and visit me. They didn't know she was my mom. And then they said they were leaving. I said, what am I going to do? She says, I don't know. She says, where's your lady that comes visit you? I said, I don't know. She didn't come. And they left. They took all the furniture. They took everything. They left a couple of books. And I was all alone in this apartment. I said to them, well, can I buy this apartment from you? Can I give you some money for it? And they said, yes. So I bought the apartment from them. And I stayed there. When was afraid to go out. I was afraid to do anything. I just stayed there, and this is a time that I hardly remember what I did. I was all alone. I didn't have a soul in this whole world. And I stayed there. I remember they left, one of the books they left was Shakespeare play, and I was reading Hamlet. To be or not to be, that is the question. I wanted to commit suicide, but I didn't know how, what to do. I had nothing. There was nothing left. And maybe they left one little frying pan or pot or something, but no furniture. I slept on the floor. And that was it. And I was really, I wanted to give myself up to the Germans. No, that's not, I don't want to do that. But I didn't want to live. I didn't have anyone. Then, it's for like 2 weeks maybe, or 3 weeks, I hear a knock on the door. And I thought, oh, now they came for me. I opened the door, and there's my mom. She said, I just want to tell you I'm alive. She said, I will come back later. I said, no, come in. She said, no, I don't want them to see me like that. I'm all bedraggled. She said, no, don't worry. And I pulled her in. She didn't know that these people left, that she had no place to stay. Here I had the apartment for her. And she came in. She was in prison all this time, on the Pawiak prison, which was a big prison in Warsaw. And they examined her, trying to find out if she was Jewish, like they accused her. And she proved that she was, to them, that she was an Aryan. And not only that, but she got a little note saying, this woman was examined and please let her pass. So she had a pass. And of course, I don't know if you know what the concierge role of the concierges in every apartment building. They know everything. The concierge sits down and watches whoever. And my mother went down. She said, I bought this apartment. I'm going to be living. And this lady this young girl that's there, she's going to be my maid. She's going to be my maid. She's my maid. And it was really, I forgot to tell you that the day my mother came back, I went out first day because it was spring. It was beautiful spring day. And I went to the open market because I don't think I ate for 2 weeks. And I bought 2 steaks. And I brought it. And when my mother came, we had the best dinner. We had the 2 steaks. It was like a mental telepathy, The first day I went out and I bought some food. It was unreal. It was like my mother was trying to connect with me. And she got a job at the Skoda. It's like a avionics thing. It's a secretary, Leave it to her. She was, and she thought I should also go out and get a job. So I started working got a job on these streetcars. But it wasn't very good because I was checking the tickets because too many people saw me. And my mother didn't look Jewish. She had blue eyes and blonde, and I looked more Jewish. So right away I started attracting people that I didn't want to attract. And some of the Poles, especially these 2 men, started following me. I would go to a church and then wait for them to leave. I come out of the church, they're still there, and they got worse and worse. One day they robbed us. They came in, and one day they said to me, yeah, and my mother said, we have to report this because if we don't report the robbery, it's going to be suspicious. So we had to, police come and reported the robbery. It was so dangerous. But one day they said, you look a lot like this lady you're living with. We think we're both Jewish. And I knew I had to do something, get out. Because they were making my life hell. So I heard that you could enroll in forced labor in Germany. And as a last resort, I went to this office where they did that. And that was kind of dangerous because there's another place where they, caught Jews. But I said I wanted to enlist for the labor. And they said, okay. And the next day, they sent me to Germany, to Berlin. And my mother said, I said goodbye to my mother. And she said, be careful, don't ever admit to anyone you are Jewish, and be careful. And I was put in this camp for girls, but they were all Polish girls. And there was a camp where we went to work for a factory called Osram Werke. It was sort of similar to GE in the United States. They did the bulbs, the light bulbs during peace. And during the war, they did other things. And I was a Drahtseherin. So I was pulling wire through industrial diamonds. It was a little machine, and I just pulled a very, very thin wire. So there wasn't hard work. It was just frustrating, The wire would get twinkled up. But the other girls who were stronger, they had a big wire, real heavy, and that was very dirty work. But I was given pretty light work. And the anti-Semitism among those girls who were they were all like peasant girls, farmers, and very primitive. And so I was from Warsaw, they thought I was different because I was different than they were. They thought I was different because I was from Warsaw. And at night I would listen to their stories, how their father found some Jews hiding in their barn, how they called the Germans, how one said he had a big fork, and he got the Jew on a fork and handed it to the Germans. I mean, unbelievable stories that I had to hear. So speaking of anti-Semitism among the primitive Poles, it was really something. One of the girls was pregnant, and of all the people, there was 100 girls, and we slept all in a big dorm on the cots. She said she wanted me to be the godmother of the baby, of all the girls. And I wanted to get out of it because I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to give myself away. And if she knew that she picked on a Jewish person, she probably didn't know what she'd do with the child. And then the bombing started. The Allies started to bomb Berlin. Because I was not afraid of the bombs. I was glad to see them, work. So we all had to go down to the shelter. And I didn't feel like going to the shelter. I worked, and I was tired, so I stayed, covered myself over my head, and stayed in my cot. The camp commander made tours, and I guess he saw saw me under the covers, and he uncovered me, and he said, "You do this again, and you're going to be out of here." So I went to the shelter the next time. When I worked in the factory, I had to take a subway to come home, and I was working night shift or day shift, switched. When I worked night shift, I would take the subway, and I was alone, and go all the way down to where our camp was. Actually, our camp was above the river, in the forest, kind of. It's really very pretty, the camp. So I would take the subway and get off, and then walk through the woods at night. I wasn't afraid. Along the river till I got to the camp. And actually, after the ghetto, it was like paradise compared. I mean, here I came to Germany, and it was really so much better. Because the Germans couldn't tell that I was Jewish. The Poles could tell, but the Germans couldn't. In fact, the Lagerführer, the camp commandant, said to me, "If all the Poles were like you, we wouldn't have anything against the Poles." I don't know why he said that, because I tried to be just like them. Well, we were bummed out, and in fact, one time there was a men's camp also, and this man was Dutch, and he asked. The Dutch were not treated as bad as the Poles. He asked me, he says, "I have tickets to the opera. Would you like to go to the opera?" I couldn't believe it. I said, "Okay." And I went to the opera one time. And I said, "This is unreal." Anyway, we were bummed out and we had to move. So we moved to Dresden.
What opera?
What?
Do you remember which opera it was?
I don't remember now. I don't remember.
But it was like a date. It was.
Well, he was, no. Well, he was very nice, but he was older. Yeah. I think he listened to the radio which was illegal, to listen to foreign station, I think, because he had all kinds of news. Like, he was the one who told me that Roosevelt died. And I cried because I thought the war would never end now for some reason. But then I found out that he was not as good as I thought he was. Well, anyway, we moved to Dresden. And in Dresden, our shop, where we worked, was in the caves, because there were mountains. And in the mountain caves used to be a brewery where they made beer, but that was transformed into this shop for the ashram. And so we worked, and we were completely safe there because it was in the mountain cave.
And you had been bombed out while you were working in the camp. This by Allied bombs. Do you remember when that was and what it? Were you there at that moment?
You talking about the Dresden?
Before you moved from Dresden, yeah.
You mean when I moved from Berlin?
Yeah.
Okay, we were bombed out in Berlin. Our camp wasn't bombed out. The the downtown Berlin was all bombed out, and the workplace was bombed out. In fact, we spent the winter cleaning bricks instead of working. There was nothing. There was no place. It was all bombed out. Berlin was just a pile of rubble. So they transferred us to Dresden.
And at this point, when you were working with all of these women, did you have friendships? I mean, how much time was passing here where you were working, cleaning bricks? Was it?
Yeah, well, this was. Yeah, I was there in 43 I left. In August of 43. I was there to 44. and then in 44 we went to Dresden. And you've heard of the bombing of Dresden. Kurt Vonnegut wrote the book, what's it called? Yeah. So I was there during that bombing, but I was at work, so I was in a cave. So we were completely safe. And some of the Germans from town were banging on the huge doors that were behind which the cave was, and our foreman, who was German, would not open the door because of the, I guess he felt we wouldn't have enough oxygen if we opened the door. So he didn't open the door. And we were there completely safe and survived but we heard the whee, of the bombs all night. The next morning we went out, and it was like Nagasaki must have looked like that, or Hiroshima. It was all like a fog, sand was in the air. The air was like a desert. It looked like a desert, like a storm in the desert where the sand blows all over. You couldn't even see anything. It was fog. I think it was napalm bombs the first time they used it. And I started walking because nobody was working or anything. We started walking, and I saw all these people, dead lying on the street. I think it was 80,000 people were killed, or some humongous number, huge number. It was awful. Yes, awful. Well, then we resumed after a while, we resumed our work. One day, the camp commandant called me, and he said, "You're not going to work today because someone is here who wants to talk to you." And he says, he's from Warsaw. And I thought to myself, someone wants to talk to me? It already scared me. And this guy, the German, came, and he had civilian clothes, and he said, "I understand that you have a lot of friends here, and that you know what people talk about, and I want you to report to me if you know that somebody has listened to the radio, foreign radio, or has some news or anything that's suspicious, you are to report to me." And I said, "I cannot do that because," says, "people don't like me and they don't confide me, and he says, the Lagerführer said, the camp commandant said, you'll be the best person to do it because people talk to you, and you know everybody." And he gave me a date, a rendezvous date in the mountains somewhere to meet him with all this information. And that was just before that bombing happened. And after the bombing, I never heard from him again because I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew what I was going to do, say nothing. I mean, I really didn't know anything. Besides, I wouldn't even tell him if I knew it. So there was, but uh, but I had a feeling that things were coming to an end, because the guy said he was from Poland, and he kind of insinuated that they were coming back, that they were, he's not going back there anymore because they are retreating. Not in that many words, but insinuating. And then one day we got up, and there were white sheets hanging out the windows everywhere. And the Russians came on the Elbe River, over the Elbe River. It was May 8. We were liberated the very last day of the war.
What was that moment like for you?
Oh my God. It was good, and it was bad. I didn't know if my mother was alive. I was hoping to, because, and I didn't know anything about anybody in my family. But I knew I didn't want to stay in the Russian zone. So there were some Frenchmen fixing a abandoned Mercedes, and no gas, but they fixed it with briquettes at the back. I don't know how they did it. And he said, "We're going to American zone." I said, "I speak English. Can I come with you?" And they said, "Okay." So I started with them almost right away after the Russians came. We started for the American zone. And the first truck we saw with American soldiers, we stopped. They told me to go out the car, and I stopped the car, the truck. It was a big truck with a lot of soldiers, and we said, we are prisoners. We are, we want to go to American zone. We are French and Polish, and can you give us some gas? So they gave us gas, and we went as far as a displaced persons camp. It was around Stuttgart. It was called Weinberg. And so that's where we stopped. And we went into there were two American soldiers standing in front. And we said, "Can we come in?" We are, and I said, "Where is the office?" And he showed us. So I walked in, and I went to the office, and they took me in, and they saw this captain sitting, captain sitting at the desk, and I said, "I am here, and I have something that I want to tell you, but I am afraid to tell you. So I think I'm Jewish, and I think I don't know if anybody else. I didn't know if any other Jews survived." And he came out from his desk, from behind his desk, put out his hand. He said, "My name is Rosenberg." So I stayed. And he says, "You speak English, so we need you here." And that's where I started working as interpreter there. He wasn't there very long. There was we had another captain. I started working for UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation, and military government. And I still have the letters they wrote, recommendations for my services. And I stayed there a year as a translator in this camp. And, of course, I wrote right away. I wrote to my grandparents and my aunt, and in England and in Israel and in Palestine, and found out that my mother survived, and my one of her brother, Dr. Rockover, Joseph, he survived. And I was the only grandchild they had that survived. Out of 9 grandchildren, I was the only one that survived. But my mother survived. And my mother was in Poland, and she stayed there till she found out, till she was able to find out what happened to my brother and father. My father was in a concentration camp, Travniki, and one day they brought my brother there to the same camp from another camp that he was in. I don't know, they don't know why. But my dad, I guess, went absolutely crazy with joy. And he said, "Oh, I know everything's going to be all right now. The war is going to end. We're all going to be together." he, and then one day they told them to run, and they shot them all. One woman survived. I guess she played dead or something, or they didn't see her. And she told my mother that. She met my mother. So, the Americans gave me an affidavit so I can come. Oh, I was going to go to Palestine because my mother was going to go there, I knew, and my grandparents were still alive. But I had to go to Cyprus, and the British had another camp on Cyprus at that time. You know, they had a quota. They didn't want to go to Cyprus and be in camp again. So I said that if I go to the United States, from there I'd probably be able to go directly to Palestine. So I came here. I came to United States because I had that affidavit from. And when I came here, my uncle in England had a lot of friends here who owed him a lot of favors because he was the first one who left Germany, and his friends who came later, you know, he helped them so much. And they couldn't do anything for him. He was very wealthy, and so so he called them up, said, "My niece is in New York, see what you can do for her." So I didn't call them, but they finally, when I called them, after being in New York a week or so, they didn't know what to do for me, you know, and I made a lifelong friends, but, you know, I was very independent, and they were so good, they were too good to me. So I decided to see a little bit of United States and go to Palestine then. So they said, "No, you can't leave." And he said, "Call your uncle." So I called my uncle. I said, "I want to go to Seattle." I looked at the map. I had a social worker that worked with me, and Service for New Americans. I said, what do you want to do?" He said, "Well, I want to go to Seattle. This is as far from New York as I can get, and then maybe make a tour, and then I think I will go to Palestine." Well, she said, "Okay." So I called my uncle and I said, "I want to go to Seattle because I want to go to university, and I think I can do that in Seattle." And he said, "Well, it's a good idea." You know, education in my family always was a good idea. So I took the train to Seattle, and the social worker notified the Jewish Family Service here. I think it was called something else then, but anyway, they said there's a young woman coming, and somebody better meet her because she thinks she knows it all, but she's just brand new. So I already had a plan. I'm going to go to Travel's Aid, get a place, and see if I can get work. So when I got off the train after 3 days, there's this big lady coming across like to meet me, and I said, oh no, somebody else. Everybody felt like a mother to me, people in New York. And she says, Irene? I said, yes. I am Minnie. And she grabbed me in her arms, and she wouldn't let me go, ever. That was it. That was my independence. She got me, she had a room for me with a Jewish family. On the way home, on the way to that place, she stopped for first papers. She already had first papers. And she had a very nice boarding house where I could stay. And next morning that night she came, and they had a meeting of Jewish Federation, and I was the speaker, unknown to me. They had a fundraiser, and I was the speaker. I guess I did okay for them. And the next day she came, and I got a job with a very well-known Jewish family, the Silvers. He had a Alaska fur, and I was working in the office. And upstairs there was a curio with Alaskan, with Indian artifacts. And downstairs on the main floor was fur coats they were selling. In those days, everybody still wore fur coats. And then she told me to go to Temple de Hirsch. They had dances there. It still, still had the USO dances, I guess. It's right after, it was 1946. And I met my husband there. We knew each other 3 months, and we got married. We've been married 58 years till he passed away. We have 3 sons, 3 daughter-in-laws, and 4 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson. I have a wonderful family. I'm so thankful to be here. And my family is everything to me, and they are wonderful. And I have a lot of good friends, and I'm just happy to be here. And also, now that I'm retired and I moved from my home where I was for over 50 years, I moved to the retirement home. There are people from all over the world here, from Africa, from South America. We have Jewish people and all kinds of religions. And it's really like a microcosmos. And I am so glad to be here because I see how everybody can get along and how tolerant we are of each other. And that's the way it should be. Nobody hates no one. Nobody. We just all live together and appreciate each other and make friends. I have a lot of friends here. And I think that is the way to live together with unity and understanding and love for all.
You mentioned that there are many, you were learning Kiswahili, that
Yeah.
people from Kenya.
Yeah.
Do you ever talk with them about your history and their histories as they might be refugees, or
Yeah.
do you ever speak about that with them?
We have a program here where it's called Your Magnificence. That means talk about yourself. And I haven't done it yet. But you see, sometimes I get very emotional. Not easy for me to talk about it. But by the way, my mom had a good life after. She was so positive. And she remarried. She married a doctor whom she knew before the war slightly, not very much, but she knew who he was. And she went to him with something, with an infected finger or something, and he lost his wife and his little boy in the Holocaust, and they got married. In fact, my mother wrote me a letter. She said, I met this man, and we like each other, and he wants to marry me, and I want to get married. I don't want to be alone, but I want your permission. And I said, and I was young, I was already married, and I said, oh, my mother wants to get married. She was 45, I think. I said, that old lady wants to get married. But I said, okay. I said, yes, if you want to. Well, he turned out to be a wonderful man, and she had a really good life with him. Till he died, so I was glad that she, was able to. And my youngest son, my mother came for my son's bar mitzvah, and my youngest son, my mother said, "That's enough. Must speak in Hebrew. Enough. You bring him to Israel for his bar mitzvah." So my youngest son was bar mitzvah in Israel with all the relatives, and my uncle gave a beautiful speech. My mother's surviving brother, who, by the way, he had quite a story too. His wife, he was chief of a sanatorium in Russia. He escaped to Russia, and his wife was German Jew. She was a nurse. They had a little baby boy, the baby, and so he was chief of a sanatorium there during the war after he escaped from Poland to Russia. But the Germans came to Russia, and when they came to his town, he went to look for a hiding place, and his wife, who already went through escaping from Germany once, she was a nurse, she took morphine, and she gave the baby morphine. When he came back, found a place to hide for them, they were both dead. They both died. And he said in his first letter to me, he said, she did not left any morphine for me. So he went into the partisans, and there's a book about the partisans, in which they talk about him. He said, we were a bunch of wild gang. When Dr. Rockover came, he brought humanity and civilization to this wild group. And he stayed in the partisans all through the war, sleeping in the woods. And after the war, he married this Jewish woman who he met in the partisans. And she also lost her son and her husband. And they had 2 daughters in Israel. And both daughters became doctors. I think I told you. And their children became doctors. I have a whole colony of doctors, relatives in Israel, on both sides.
When you were, say, stepping out of the caves and seeing Dresden, or when you were in the house without any food and hiding, when you said that you weren't sure, that you didn't want to live, what kept you living? Why did you keep living? Do you know?
Well, I remember my mother came to say goodbye to me when they took her to prison. She said, you must survive, she said. You must survive. And you know where to go after you survive. You have these addresses. I said, you have to, you're going to be the witness. You have to survive. Because she didn't think she was going to get out of there. But she didn't, say that in those words, but she said, you must survive. And I think that was, and maybe the hope that she would survive. Because I thought my mother could perform miracles, which she did. She really did. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. And by the way, another story is that I told you that my mother had a best friend who was also a lawyer and a judge later in Poland. And she saved their little boy. She survived and saved their little boy. And she had a brother-in-law in the States who, after the war, sent for her, brought her to the States. And my mother said, my best friend, who you called Auntie Bronca, she lives in Corvallis, Oregon. She survived and she's there. And I didn't know, I was here, I was already married, but I didn't know anybody from home. And I didn't have any of my relatives. And I used to call her Auntie Bronca. So I got in a car and I drove down there and found them in Corvallis, Oregon. But they were living under assumed name, they're Chevalier, and not as Jews, because her brother-in-law said there was a lot of anti-Semitism in Corvallis, and he had a couple stores. One was a lady store and one was a cleaning place. When I came in, there was my Auntie Bronca, who was a judge in Poland, standing over an ironing board, ironing clothes, ironing, and I could not believe it. And I couldn't believe that she was living as a Gentile. And I said, Bronca, you survived the war for this? To come to United States and to hide again? So you come to Seattle. She took her son and they came to Seattle. And she got a job at Providence Hospital working there. And at least it wasn't standing over hot iron. And the boy went to school. He went to medical school. He became a wonderful cardiologist. And he married, he had a big family, wonderful family. And my doctor is his son now. His son is my doctor now. And they are very happy. And every time there's some holiday or something, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Irene. So I am so glad I did that. So that was my mother's best friend, my Auntie Bronca. She's gone, of course,
Had to rebuild some kind of sense of community and family.
Yeah.
Your mother gave you this imperative. And I imagine it was in Polish. She was speaking to you in Polish.
Yeah.
But you had an imperative from your mother, but at some point you had to internalize a choice, or does it not work like that? When you're faced with sort of the moment of to be or not to be, as you put it.
Yeah.
You just
Well, and also, I didn't know how to do it. Pain, I didn't want to be, if I had a morphine, I didn't want to jump. We were on the top floor, but I didn't want to jump out the window, And I had no, nothing, I didn't know, maybe open my vein, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to, I wanted really to take a pill. Like my friend who was in the bunker, that survived the bunker, her dad was in the bunker. He had a cyanide pill. And when they came to shoot everyone, he took the pill. Yeah.
So when you were here, how did you kind of pick up the pieces and say, well, I'm moving forward? Was it, I can only imagine you spoke English already.
Yes.
You already, you had English, you had many different languages at this point. You could move in and out of, but you were essentially alone.
When I came here,
without family, without community.
That's why I went to look my Auntie Bronca.
Yeah,
because she was not a relative, but she was, someone from my past, a friend of my mother's best friend. My mother went from kindergarten to law school with her. But, people were so nice to me here. And many, she called herself my American mother. And she went to meet my aunt in England. She went to meet in fact, she went to Israel. And my mother, I told you that our house was in Tel Aviv, right across from the hotels. So she was in the hotel right across, it was 6 a.m, and she was with another lady. She said, where are you going? I'm going to go meet Carola, Irene's mother. She said, 6 a.m, I don't care. And she went 6 o'clock she knocked on rang my mother's door, and my mother saw this lady. The doctor is. She thought it was one of the tourists coming to her husband as a doctor, because he had a little sign that said Dr. Kaufman on it. He said, "Doctor isn't here," she said. "The doctor isn't here." She said, "I didn't come to see the doctor. I came to see you, Carola. I am Minnie, Irene's American mother." Okay, my mother was very happy to see her. Yeah. So people and the Silvers were so nice to me where I worked. My first Thanksgiving I had there, and Max Silver stood as my dad. He gave me away at the wedding. And my wedding was in Minnie's house. She had a big house with a staircase, and I came down the staircase, and Max Silver gave me away. And, everybody was I didn't feel alone. And, of course, my husband and my mother-in-law was a dear. Can I tell you a little funny story? My husband told his mother, "I met a girl, and I want you to have her over for dinner, Mom. And you like her because she's from the old country like you." So I came with my husband, and the first thing I met this cute little lady, and she says, "So you are from the old country?" I said, "Yeah." "So you speak Mamelosh and Yiddish?" I said, "No, I'm sorry." "So you are from the old country, you don't speak Yiddish?" I said, "No, I don't." Well, she couldn't believe it that anybody would come from the, old country that speak Yiddish. So the next day, she kind of cooled off a little bit. The next day I called up and I said, "Mrs. Epstein, this is Irene. I want to thank you for the lovely dinner you made. It was so nice of you to have me." She said, "Oh yeah, Irene, by the way, what was your last name again?" I said, "My last name is Ginsburg." "Ginsburg? Ah, what a beautiful name." Because she didn't think I was Jewish. How could I be Jewish and not speak Yiddish? See, she came from a little shtetl. Everybody spoke Yiddish. I said, "It's the first time I heard Ginsburg was such a beautiful name."
Yeah, I suppose in the face of destruction, a community attempts to
Yeah,
find
everybody was so nice to me here. I mean, I really didn't feel alone. And my husband had three brothers, and two are already married, and my sister-in-laws. And then the youngest brother got married, and his wife is still alive, and I love her, and we are best friends. She's like my sister. I guess I like to get along with people. On one of my reports from when I didn't tell you I went to university, did I?
You came out here to study, but I didn't hear about your time in university.
Yeah, I went to university. So when the kids were in junior high school, I think my oldest, I decided it was time for me to do something in education-wise. I was so busy, right? I had my three kids within 5 years, and then they were babies. As soon as the youngest one was in school, I went to UW, and I said, I don't have because when I quit school, I didn't quit school. I was told I cannot go to school anymore in Poland. I didn't tell you that either. The Germans came, the Jews couldn't go to school, and the school told me, "You're finished." And I had 2 more years to go to finish high school. So when we were in the ghetto, my parents hired some private teachers, but I never went to school in the ghetto. But here and there, I was learning. I had some teachers when it was possible. At the end, it was not possible. But I went to a very good school, and I had really good education, basic education. So I went to UW, so I didn't finish. I told them my story. I said, but give me a test and see if I pass the test. And they would refuse. So then I went to Seattle U and said the same thing. And they said, okay. And so they gave me a test. And I passed the test. I qualified for 2 level, subject 2. So I went 3 years, did it in 3 years, graduated summa cum laude. I got my certificate there. And then I taught languages and reading and for 19 years.
And had you learned languages in your growing up, or was it only?
Well, English and French I learned in school, and then at the university I took French, and I knew German, and I took Spanish at the university.
So you growing up, you spoke Polish in the home, but you were learning English in school, or?
No, I told you I had an English nanny. I told you at the beginning. I grew up, I had an English nanny for a while.
And that's how you learned to speak English?
Yeah, that's how I learned to speak English, to begin with. And then I took lessons, private lessons.
And the German, was that only when you moved to Germany? Or?
Yeah, I picked it up, And then also at the university I took it.
And the French?
Well, the French I took at school. And I was in France for a while. Spent a month. I have pictures. Before I came to the United States, I was able to go for 6 weeks to Paris from United Nations Relief, UNRWA, from UNRWA.
So
and then I took French at the university.
When you were working for UNRWA as a translator, you were translating refugee stories. Would you talk a little bit about what you were translating? And
well, first of all, daily life in the camp. Nobody spoke English. No one. In school in Poland, they taught French. In my school, they taught French, Latin, and Greek. And the Latin base is very good, for everything, yeah. I still remember Gallia is omnia divisa in partes tres. The Gaul is divided, that's Caesar. Gaul is divided in 3 parts. Arma virumque cano. I'm singing of Armin, and it's what is Ovidius, I think. Ovid, yeah, Ovidius. Yeah. So.
Well.
Anything else?
Well, I'm trying to think back to maybe things that you feel that you want to speak about more. Maybe just contemporary. When you talked a lot about.
Oh yeah. So after I retired from school, I already had a real estate license because I took it some time before. So I started selling real estate. I was in real estate for 12 years.
And here in Seattle?
Yeah, Mercer Island, where I live in Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose a testimony is, it's about the past and what's happened, but it's also about this present moment. You've got, your grandchildren and your family.
Yeah.
But also what's happening around us. And I don't know if you have any reflections about what's happening around us here in this country these days in terms of what people think about in terms of the long tale of history and how things
Well, this can be political. I don't know if that.
Well, this is your testimony, and I don't know, maybe...
Well, I think the country is going backwards. Because I don't like what's happening.
Can you speak to some of the xenophobia and the racism and the...
Yeah, there's a rising... tremendous rise in racism and inequality in wealth. And we've never had that many homeless, which is a tragedy. I don't know what's going to happen. I guess we had other times where things were bad, but I think things are not good.
I mean, you lived through the civil rights era. You
No.
lived through, great movements in this country that may or may not have, resulted in the kinds of that did not result in the kinds of equality that we would want.
No.
And
No.
yet, right now, it seems, yes, as you say, we're moving.
Yeah, but
back.
it seems to be global. It seems this global.
And how does somebody who has been not just discriminated against, but targeted for destruction and elimination, your whole community, how
Yeah.
do you perceive?
Well, I feel very bad about that. It's even hard to talk about it because I get very depressed when I hear the news. Very depressed. When they had that. I don't know why. I don't understand why such hatred. Just really hatred. That's why I feel good about this place because we have such, equality here. Everybody is respected, and and we have the staff here, like from Africa. They always come and we always hug each other, and we just sort of, we care.
I sometimes think that that the new generation or the younger generation doesn't fully grasp what we've been hearing, my generation, from your generation, in terms of the way history, as the tale of history.
Mm.
And I wonder, one of the questions that the center is asking as a separate project that they'd like to include in an exhibit is, what do we have to tell the children? I mean, I think the testimony unto itself, as bearing witness to the history, is really what people need to hear. But is there something in terms of the perspective you have about history that you think that maybe a younger generation can't possibly see? Maybe something that maybe you yourself mentioned when you were little, you couldn't imagine what was about to happen.
No.
Do you think it's crazy to extrapolate upon that moment and say, well, this could be a devastating moment. Let's take a look. How do you perceive this moment in time? And I know you say you don't want to think about it, but here we are, and we know we're staring at it.
Yeah. Well, I hope that things will change for the better. That's my hope, that people will, that this is just a phase that we're going through, and maybe if we get even a woman, in there, and somebody who promotes these different values for everyone, that people will follow. I mean, things have to change. And that's the only way, I think, is, in the United States was always the leader, and everybody follows us. And now, a lot of the countries now have presidents who follow Trump. Many countries now. And that's, not good. I think that we need if we get somebody, and I hope we will get a woman who will be like a beacon of good stuff, and things will change. I think things will change. I mean, I feel like if I survive is like a miracle, and so we can believe in miracles. And it's going to change. It can't stay that way. We're going to destroy ourselves if we stay that way. People just have to if the British prince can marry a black girl, that's a good example for young people.
And as a Jew today, in this country, well, maybe this is, I don't
What?
need to, I'm just thinking, you know, there's no doubt that anti-Semitism is
On the rise.
on the rise. And why you say on the rise, you know, maybe we could say it's always been there, it's just under the carpet. But right now there's a moment in time where people are lifting the carpet and proud to kind of reveal this. To a country that well, I don't doubt that you didn't have, you know, some negative experiences even here, but to a country that has embraced you after all that you've lived through, to see this happening, I can only imagine what it must be like for you.
You mean in this country?
Yeah, globally.
Yeah. Well, I had some painful experiences here too, you know, because. But on the whole, I don't feel that when I lived here all these years, you know, I felt accepted. I didn't feel the same way as I felt in Poland. You know, I had a lot of Gentile. I was the only Jew on my street, and all my neighbors were my good friends, which wouldn't have happened, you know, in Poland. I don't say that all the Poles were bad, but generally, you know, they were like the peasants, and they were not educated, and all they know is that Jews killed Christ. That's it. But here, I think it's more economics and, you know, just control this and just control that, more rather than religion.
Tropes, yeah. Do you have any questions that you would like me to ask, to have as part of this testimony? Questions that I haven't asked, things that you're thinking
Do
of?
you have any questions?
Well, I always have questions, including I want to know what your relationship to Anna Borowska is. You know, when you hear that name, you've got to have imagined who this girl was, and you know, this name that she carried. You know, I have so many questions, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I like Anna Borowska. It's a nice name, too. Anna. There's a lot of people here named Anna, and I always laugh because it reminds me of, there's more Annas here than Annas and Dorises. We must have like six or seven Annas here. And one is from Germany. Yeah, I like that girl. She was, first of all, I think of Anna was forever young. And Irene Epstein is old. Yeah, I was forever young. And that was good, yeah.
And in some regard, Irene Ginsburg and Irene Epstein had a chance to live because of Anna Borowska.
That's right. She was my savior. Yeah, it is a nice name, Borowska. Actually, Borowski is a kind of a berry, tart berry, like cranberry type of thing. So, yeah, so I always like my name. I like the Anna Borowska. And now I have a famous name too, Ruth Ginsburg.
Yeah.
And I spell it almost the same, B-U-R-G.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another question, which maybe is not a fair question because there's nothing we can do about being Jews. We're Jews if we're Jews.
Yeah.
Right? But
Oh, another thing I'll tell you. after the war, my mother asked me from Israel, if after all you went through, you want to stay Anna Borowska, you don't want to go back to your Jewish name and be Jewish, I will understand. I will understand. But I wrote back and I said, it never even occurred to me. I wanted so much to be with Jewish people. That's what I wanted to do, be in Jewish community and have my Jewish friends again.
What is the feeling of not physically hiding in a building, but hiding who you are? What does that feel like?
It's hard. It's hard. You're always afraid that it might be a word or something that will betray you. And then what's going to happen? Many times I have nightmares that I am discovered or something. I do have nightmares. Not all the time, but yeah. Still. Basically, my mother was a very positive person. I have and my uncle Joseph, who married this woman after the war, she lived the Holocaust. The only thing she could talk was Holocaust, what she went through, what her family went through, and she didn't even. When I would tell her something, or my mother, she would say, "No, it wasn't like me. I really, and her kids had to be in therapy because she said, if my husband ever shows up because I don't know what happened to him, I will leave your dad." And so they were afraid. Every time a patient came to see my uncle, they thought maybe there was, her husband and that was terrible. My mother was very positive. She said, we survive, and life is for the living, and you have to make the best of it. I mean, if you survive, you have to make the best of it. Especially since you are young, you have a whole life ahead of you, and do the best.
And you were positive with your children.
Yes, I was very positive with my children.
When it came time to share with them...
You know what they told me? They said, we knew it. We know it. We knew it. I said, yeah, we knew it.
How did they know?
I don't know. Maybe my husband told them. They knew it.
Did you feel at any point you had to hide the history from your children in order to be positive?
Yeah, well, I felt I couldn't really, I didn't want them to grow up with a fear or with a burden on their shoulders. I told them as much as, in pieces. It wasn't, I didn't sit down and talk like I am talking now. Yeah, I wanted them to have a happy childhood and not to feel different. I think this will make them feel we are different. And I didn't want that.
Are there things you would want to tell to your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and the children in your family that you haven't yet met? Are there things that you want to tell them that if they were to someday go to the museum or log in online and watch this testimony in their lives, are there things you wish to tell your own family whom you do not know?
Well, first I would tell them how important the family is and to get along. I see some parents and children who are estranged, and I say how much they miss. To me, the family nucleus is number one. You have to build up your family to be strong and to be loving to each other. There's so many families where they don't have this relationship. And that I don't think I think that's very detrimental. to your ego and to your personality, to the way you treat others. And I think that having this loving family as we did, and the way I try to bring my kids to, I tell them to this day, you know what's my greatest joy in life? That you three guys get along so well with each other. They're very loving, the three boys that I have, and caring of each other. And that really is a great joy to me, that they talk to each other, and the sister-in-laws are friendly. In fact, they're coming for dinner tonight. Yeah, yeah. And, I try to keep them together. And, I went to my son's house, and I cooked the New Year's Rosh Hashanah dinner. I cooked it for them. And I took the great joy in that. Yeah, I think that I would tell them, first your family, and then have a lot of good friends, but build up your family first. I think that's most... If you have a good family, you'll be good to others too. I feel that my upbringing, that my happy childhood and my strong, loving parents just had influence on my whole life, knowing they were there for me. So I think that's so important.
Maybe we can, if you'd like to offer names as part of this testimony or a moment of silence, if you'd like to kind of offer any names that you want to be part of this testimony in memory of, or or just we can offer kind of a moment of silence at the end here. But
I don't understand what you're saying now.
Would you like to share any names of people?
Oh, names?
Yeah. Would you like to say any names that you would like their memories to be connected to your testimony in the museum?
I think I mentioned some names.
You mentioned.
I mentioned Minnie and Max Silver, and my children, my daughter-in-laws, my sister-in-law Muriel. And did I mention my kids' names?
No, but let's go ahead and
Yeah.
mention them.
My oldest son, Larry, he was the firstborn. And he was the cutest baby I ever saw. The nurses put a ribbon in his hair when he was born. He had hair, and he was a doll. And he was very good. And then my second son, Ron, who was a real maverick always. He was the troublemaker, but he was lovable as can be. He's got the best personality still. And my baby David, who was always my mama's boy when he was little, but he's pretty independent now, and they're all wonderful, and they all went to the U, and they all worked, and they were good fathers and good husbands, and just wonderful boys. And I have three daughter-in-laws, Rosie, and Lorena and Olga, and they all three are lovely, lovely ladies, and I really love them, and they've been so involved with my 95th birthday. Did you hear what happened? My 95th birthday, they planned this huge party here for 60 people or more, and they had a piano player come, and they had a video made of my life, and the morning of the party, there was an outage, no light, no heat, nothing, and it was dark, and there was no way we could have a party. They had nothing was working. The generator broke, so they had no light. The whole place, no heat. So I had to get up on the phone in the morning and call all my friends off. And the family, I had family come from New York, my granddaughter, my niece from New York, and my cousin from Florida. All these 3 families. And they were already here. And we had to call it off. So I will never forget my 95th birthday.
So you need to have 96th.
Yeah. So we just had the family over. But all my friends I had to call off. So that was, never forget my 95th.
Next year in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Yeah, I still have my family in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Yeah, big family, yeah.
Well,
So that was my 95th birthday. Never forgotten, never will forget that. Nobody else will. They still say, oh, yeah. Yeah, so I mentioned it. Yes, and
I need to change the question. It would be, why did you agree to do this today?
Mhm.
It's not an easy thing. It's not fun to go back and relive your memories for you, and by any stretch of the imagination. You've already articulated how you have nightmares. This is, but why do this? Why do this for the museum? Why do this for your family? Why do this for history? Yeah, that's my question. Why do you speak?
So I think it's important to tell the story. First of all, history teaches a lot of things, and I hope that future generation will study that and get some insight into what happened, and that should not ever happen again, and they will take a lesson from this history. I hope it will be useful for the future generations, and that they will take an example of how to not to act, and that they will provide them knowledge and insight and make them better people by studying the history and seeing the outcome and hoping for a better future, and not letting it slide into this terrible period again. And I did this with the hope for a better world.
And when people witness that you carry these memories, that they still are as palpable as they once were, they're just that you're carrying, visions of the past with you.
Yes, they're still like they're like they happened yesterday. When I start talking, it all comes back to me. It rushes. So I don't even know which thing to say first, because I have this rush of memories that flood my brain. So many things, so many little things that happened that I didn't even talk about. It was every day every minute counted to my survival. I was afraid to talk in my sleep because I had dreams, I had nightmares, and here I was in this bedroom with 100 other women, young women, and I was just thankful I didn't speak Yiddish because I would, might say something. I always remember this huge bedroom that we had, dormitory that we had in Berlin, and they had a big fireplace at the one end and all the beds at the other end. And and we were all in on the cots, and the rats, they were doing their dance around the fireplace. The rats were just dancing, and never forget that. It was by the fire because it was cold. We would freeze to death. But they had a big fire going at one end. Yeah, still remember. And then they would have the sirens, and there was the bombings, the airplanes coming. The Allies. Well, you think it's enough?
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we can
No,
feel more if you
no.
want.
I think the light starts to bother me.
Your eyes.
I can't even see her face.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
I'll turn-
so, what do you think? Was it okay? For a while. I mean, to the point. Now, did you want me to say something like "thank you" to you for taping it?
No. I mean, they asked me to ask a few questions just for a separate educational curriculum. If you would like to do that, I will pull up the questions. I don't know if I'm pretty sure that we covered all of the things. This is, let's see here. Yeah, it looks to me like we have covered everything. So, I think I'm just very thankful that you are here today to share this and that you did this, and I hope.
So you're going to be gone now. So are they going to get in touch with me, or do I?
So I'm only going for 2 weeks.
Oh, you're going to be
I'll
back.
be back after 2 weeks.
So you're going to get in touch with me.
So I can be in touch with you.
Okay, let me know if we can see it or what.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll speak with Julia, and Richard's out of town for another month, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stop this